Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I know see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business. Welcome back to the show. As I told you before, my guest is here, is ready. And some of the points I've been speaking on before is going to help us quickly for the rest of the time we have on the program, and just to help us dissect it. So our guest today is Engineer Idowu Oyebanjo. And indeed, we are indeed grateful, sir, for your time on the show. And I'll just tell you briefly about my guest. Now, Mr. Engineer Oyebanjo is a Managing Director of Idfond Power Engineering Services Limited, and is one of the few people in the world with proven experience in three main tiers of the energy sector: oil, gas, and power. I'm sure you see him a lot talking power. And today, we are pleased to have him. He's a Chartered Power Systems Protection Engineer, and he has been working over the years within the power sector. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
We are pleased to have you as our very first guest on the Energy Outlook.
It's great.
I know we talked about this, before now, and the sector needs, this kind of engagement constantly to follow some of the issues in the sector, and have experts like you tell us more, where we should be looking at and bring to light to the audience some of the problems and solutions. And I followed your work over the years, and I'm indeed, grateful that we're having you on the program today. But because of time, we'll just really move quickly to some of the conversations. And we're discussing the power sector. The power sector itself is very critical to the country. If we don't fix power, nothing is going to work. And I think everybody's in agreement with this. But we want to start first with the grid collapses. Last year, we had 12 grid collapses in the country. It seems like every month there was a grid collapse. So we're going to start from this place, sir. If you help us just sort of give us maybe an overview of all that has happened last year, talking on the grid collapses, and why were there 12 grid collapses? What are we not doing right?
Thank you very much for that. It is not that the Nigerian power grid is complex or massive. It's small compared to power systems like the UK's, the Americas, and Canadian power system, China, for example.
Okay.
But we have problems internally. And we have very limited amount of generation. We're talking about less than 6,000 megawatts for more than 60 years. So in actual fact, the Nigerian power system is like the 1920s American, UK power system.
Okay.
Whereas for over 120 years, the technology called electricity has been available. And we seem not to be able to get it right because of lack of meritocracy in Nigeria and because of willpower. So the only hope for Nigeria is the implementation of the Electricity Act, with states taking the bull by the horns and establishing the electricity market, which is where the country will go.
So last year for you, how did the sector perform itself?
Well, because it's a year after the Electricity Act was signed on Thursday, in June 2023, and amended very early in the year. It was so nice for me to see some states, not enough, but at least 6, 7 states signed on to that.
We have a total of 10 states now.
Last year, 8 of them eventually made it, and that's encouraging. I would have thought over 20 or 25
would have
done
so
it, because that's an indication directly that that state government wants to develop and wants economic development. And but for those who are yet to take it, they may have their reasons, but it's not good. So this year, one expects that you have more. A lot of things were expected last year in the power sector. The Integrated Electricity Policy and Strategic Implementation Plan was mandated from 2023 to be prepared by the Ministry of Power and submitted for review by the Federal Executive Council. Because that policy document will describe the future of the Nigerian power sector maybe for a long time. But that document is not out yet. Another one is the act called for the unbundling of TCN, Transmission Company of Nigeria, into the transmission system provider and the independent system operator. So again, unfortunate because we don't have that separation yet. And these are requirements of the Electricity Act, and failure to do so sends the wrong signals to investors because they know that something is going wrong. And meritocracy must be at the heart of this.
So, we understand the issue of vandalism is one factor for the grid collapses. So other factors are what? Because 12 last year was a lot.
A critical factor for grid collapse in Nigeria or anywhere in the world is lack of protection coordination. Protection is the key thing. And protection is the heart of any stable power system. But Nigeria doesn't have well-coordinated power system protection. So a fault in one area, and that should not be, because the real definition of protection is that it isolates. It has one of the critical components or characteristics of a protection system is that once there is a fault in a part of an integrated network, it will isolate that part that is having fault so that the rest of the system can go on. But where you don't have that, a fault in one part of the system will cascade into other parts, destroy many parts at the same time, and cause chaos or grid collapse. Look at the vandalism you talked about. Once a place is vandalized, yes, that place should be out of power because of vandalism. But the other parts of the country should never.
That place should be isolated.
Yeah, but because there is no proper protection, you don't have that isolation. So this is a key area that Nigeria will look for. That's number one. Another one is the governance structure. Because this unbundling of the independent system operator is critical to that, so that the independent system operator can enforce the grid code. The people participating in the market, electricity market in Nigeria, they are not compliant with the requirement of the grid code and the distribution code. Because that code calls for system planning, among other things. It calls for system protection, and it comes from various requirements that will make the grid to be stable. But because it's not been enforced properly, because the enforcer is also a part of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, which is why the separation needs to take place. Because without that, you cannot be a judge in your own case.
Any reason why the separation is very slow?
Well, it's the same issue with Nigeria. So if Nigeria happens to anything, then that's why we have that.
While I was prepared, I read on your page, there's a quote, there's something you said. You said national grid collapse will have to happen in order to bring an end to national grid collapse in Nigeria. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's just a play on words, really, to explain that greed, G-R-E-E-D, unwanting love for money, acquisition of money. Look, a former power minister was arrested for taking up to 23 billion
Yes.
for on Mambila project.
Project, yes.
That project has been on since 1972. So it seems government after government has been using that line item in the budget to take out money. And now the case in, I learned the former president Obasanjo was in France to go and testify last week on that same project, Mambila project. So greed, G-R-R-E-D,
yes.
we need to collapse for our GRID, our power
To
grid, not to collapse again. And if you look at the EFCC boss, he
Yes.
came up with his report after he investigated grid collapse.
Yes.
He said that if we should publish our findings,
the findings they had.
that Nigeria will cry. So why would they not publish it so that we can move forward?
Cry. But I want to move you forward now to the important part, because we see
Yeah.
that the solution is, decentralizing all of this. And 10 states, as at 2 days ago, NEC published 10 states. NEC says have commenced transfer of regulatory oversight to 10 states. And I'm going to tell you the states now. They are Enugu, Ekiti,
Yeah.
Ondo, Imo, Oyo, Edo, Kogi, Lagos, Ogun, and Niger State. So NEC affirmatively have said these 10 states, once the transfer is complete, the state will be in charge of regulating the electricity market. As we look into 2025, do you see positives here? Do you see, aside knowing the fact that this is what will solve some of the great collapse issue, but what are the other positive side you see with this now? Although we expect there should be about 20 states, that's a downside that we have only 10. But what should we be looking out for, especially these 10 states? Where are some of the key things we should be looking out for?
First thing is meritocracy.
Okay.
Meritocracy is the first thing in the appointment. So any of these states that appoint their electricity regulatory commission, you want to watch that the person in charge of finance have significant finance experience for power projects at least. And the person in charge of the commercial activities, we have experience in negotiation of contracts of the scale of the power projects that that will take place in the state. Then the engineers, the people that will be in charge of the technical aspects of the power of the regulatory commission, they will be thoroughly bred engineers, people who have worked in electricity markets, preferably. You see, if an investor sees who you have put as the head of your power system, they might not just come, because they know that the person cannot get it right. Because if you have square pegs in round hole, investors will not come.
Okay.
So when you make sure that these states, first of all, appoint the right people, they should make it meritocratic in their appointment. That's step one. Then the next thing, the people in the regulatory commission, following from their meritocratic background, they know the right stuff to do. System planning, enforcement of system rules, discussion with the discos and the subscos that are in your state, and then setting regulatory priorities. So regulation is by means of enforcement of license conditions, setting performance targets, using incentives, and standards, operational standards, which people have to follow. And now you have to monitor and audit those things so that you can be sure that they will be compliant. For example, you will set a standard for Lagos State, for example, or any state at that, look, if customers ask you for meters, you must provide them within 10 days.
Okay. The states can set this
Yeah,
as a
you
policy.
can set that.
Okay.
Then you will say, if customer make a complaint to you for connection of their electricity, after they have fulfilled their own part, you must not pass 15 days. And so you set all these conditions. And that's why you need people who have worked in an electricity market that has been functional, because they know all these things. Now, all these things will now start to make the consumers happy. One important one is customer, and this is so critical, I must say, this wonderful thing you are doing. has to be supported. This is the only way the electricity market in any state can develop. Customer participation, customer engagement, doing fora like your own and many others, setting up customer engagement. The discos or the distribution companies that will come in any state, they will have to engage the customers. If customers are not happy, there is no power system. So that is why a good electricity regulator will set up customer satisfaction targets for at the end of the day, the services being provided are for the customer. So if they tell you that, look, we lost our power 20 times in a day, so there are ways we use those 20 times to kind of penalize the discos. And when the discos now stop taking your electricity for 20 times, maybe to 2 times, and the customers tell us it's 2 times, we now give them incentives. We incentivize their performance.
So the things like tariff, metering, how would this be solved, of course, with this bill as it's going down to the states? Are you saying that the states will now have the leverage to, of course, say, like you said, we can have meter in 15 days, we can have, they can set their own tariff and all of that. Is that what is going to happen?
Yeah. So the state will just essentially say, there's no consumer in our state that will be without meters.
Okay.
And then they take it off. Of course, it is by discussion with the discos as well as the customers. So there will be always a conversation in any good electricity market between the regulator and the important stakeholders. And the most important stakeholder are the consumers.
And the consumers. All right. So my next question now is, of course, customers listening and watching want to know, how would this translate to me having power? But most importantly, the discourse we already have, I can't recall what the act says. How would that work for them, for the states that begin, like these 10 states now? If I look at from here now, like Lagos that has like 2 discos, what is going to happen to those discos?
Okay, so those discos, immediately this is passed, within 3 months, they are supposed to, 3 to 6 months, they are supposed to establish a subsidiary company called SUBCO. So they will have to establish a subsidiary company of the original, the main company. So say Ikeja Electric, we establish Ikeja SUBCO, subsidiary company. And that we have business segregation. That is to say, there are certain parts of the operation that will not be linked. Okay. So there will be business segregation. There are ways we do business segregation in power systems, and hopefully the people in charge of the electricity market will know that and will implement that. Now, ECO will also have its own SUBCO. But also there will be other independent electricity distribution companies. So they will spring up. They will say, okay, they will apply, and they will. So we now have a lot of opportunities for people to switch services and to...
Okay, so I can choose to use, for example, ECO, SUBCO. I can switch to use maybe Wisdom Power Company.
Absolutely.
Okay. For my house, and that will be okay under this law.
Under this law. And that depends on the electricity regulatory commission of that state. And also depends on the generators. A lot of generation will then spring up in certain places. So people will look at the resources in that area. If it's hydro, water, they will dam, and they will just get hydro.
To serve that particular area.
And that's going to be part of the electricity market for that place. In the case of Lagos, you see people bringing in gas engines. You will see a lot of people bringing gas power plants in various parts of Lagos. And they're going to just serve this Oniru with gas power plants. They're going to create their own independent network within the network. And they will serve the Oniru estate. They will serve Lekki. They will serve Banana Island. They will serve Ikeja. They will serve the industrial estate, Ilupeju, and so on and so forth. Ota. That's what's going to happen. Agbara, for the Lagos zone. And in other states, the same will happen in Kano, in Kaduna, as long as they have the electricity market established and based on meritocracy.
Now, for states where the discos serve more than one state, is still the same thing with the SUBCO?
Yeah.
Or the SUBCO can... So if, for example, I know Port Harcourt disco serves Port Harcourt, how would that work for them?
Okay, so they serve, for example, Akwa Ibom State, also Bayelsa, and then Rivers State. So if any of these states declare the electricity market, so they will, in that particular state only, they will create a SUBCO. And some of them have done like that, like Ondo State, Ekiti State.
Yes.
You know, they have part of Edo State, Benin,
True.
Disco, and then they have part of Oyo, Ibadan, electricity disco. So what happened? The Ibadan electricity disco, we have to create a subcode that will serve that particular state requirement, and Benin electricity disco will do the same. The same thing for Abuja disco. I think Niger State is one of those last.
Yes, last states.
And because Abuja electricity disco serves Niger State from the northern part, and from the southern part up to you have Ibadan electricity disco. So those two discos that have functions in that particular state that have
form their own subco.
They have to form subco.
Their own subco.
For those ones. Meanwhile, Ibadan enters Ogun State, enters Lagos State, so it's quite good. It's going to be massive for Ibadan electricity disco because it's the largest by land mass. Cutting across
any concern how they're going to manage this kind of business? Did the law, did the Electricity Act maybe stipulate or give any guidelines how they can manage?
The most important thing is coordination.
Coordination.
And that's my fear, the coordination. The Act cleverly asks for a body to be set up to take charge of the coordination. And that's very important.
Who sets up this body now?
It's Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Because it's the established electricity regulator for the national, what we call the wholesale market. So this Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission is supposed to lead the coordination agenda. And it's supposed to set up a body. And that body is specified in the law. Because without that, before this Electricity Act, I used to write about a power system architect. And that's because I look at the Nigerian power system, I see a lot of lack of coordination. In it. Lack of coordination in projects. People just go and put projects in my backyard. Okay, I'm a governor or I'm a minister. And then that's what is causing grid collapse most of the times. Because the projects are in the wrong places. They are not viable. They are not in places where they can pay back. So the illiquidity continues to grow.
To be an issue.
And worse still, those equipment that you put in places where there is no load, you will now give what we call Ferranti effect. The Ferranti effect will lead to a voltage rise. The voltage rise will break down the insulation of the system, like the ones that happen in Jebba. Watch out for Jebba. Every year, the collapse from the system comes from that place. Jebba. If you go and take
issue.
It's this issue that is causing it. So the voltage rises just because you have a lightly loaded Ferranti effect in that place. So power system planning must be a focus. And power system planning must be done by the right people. People who have knowledge of power systems. And there are few in the world. So you don't get it, you get it wrong and cost your network. So the state electricity market, they have to go for the best. They have to look for people with experience. I mean,
It's looking like a tough job for the states.
It's not tough because you have a lot of Nigerians there who have worked in power system markets worldwide. You have them in Nigeria also, a lot of people who have experience. For example, the Chartered Institute of Power Engineers is full of power engineers with meritocratic background who can actually
that could be go where the states can go and shop for these experts.
And the body is willing to assist because you see, we recognize that this is our profession. I mean, people who have worked for 35 years and have retired and now 70, they look back in their world of power systems and they feel a lot of regret. Regret that the power system that they studied for, they practiced for, never was.
Okay. We're going to come back now, and I want us to switch the conversation to a different level now, so that we'll look at the other aspects of our energy mix. The law, like I said earlier, there's a chapter that talks about renewable energy, and of course how that will be used. How we can leverage that in our energy mix. So we're going to come back. I've been speaking here. My guest is Engineer Idowu Oyebanjo, Managing Director, 8Fon Power Engineering Services Limited, and is helping us dissect some of the power issues and, of course, what we can look out for the year 2025. Stay with us. We'll be back after this short break, and then we'll move to the next conversation.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I know see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we'll analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
All right, welcome back. And we've been discussing the power sector and, of course, expectations for 2025. What should we look out for the year? What are some of the issues? Where the focus should be? Should we be excited? 10 states now have their market, according to the Nigeria Electricity Commission. Should this be the focus for the year? How do we get more states to do that? But part of all of this is the issue of renewables. And the International Energy Agency projects that renewables will supply nearly 50% of global electricity by 2040. And Good 18 Nigeria already saw the future in this act. So I'll come to you. My guest is Engineer Idowu Oyebanjo. Engineer, I want to come back to you now that the issue of renewables, how can we bring it, add it or include it in our energy mix? What should the states be looking at for?
Thank you for that. It's a must. In fact, Africa is behind. I tell you what, last 2 weeks, Britain is connecting an undersea cable to North Africa. So they went to select a portion of Africa that has a lot of sunlight. The whole of Africa is full of sun. Yeah. Now they connected from that point in North Africa all the way under the Atlantic Ocean, just into their country to continue to power them. Because that will give them uninterrupted power supply, at least for a larger part of the day. And they can now use solar battery storage system to store during the day and use those ones for the light loads overnight. Now, but the African continent, where this massive amount of energy is being taken, is sleeping. It's not using it. For donkey years now. We should have been the one pioneering the concept of renewables. Now,
because we have enough and abundant sunlight.
Oh, yeah. But we don't have the willpower, the right kind of people who will say, look, energy is life. Without it, I cannot emancipate my people from mental slavery. So that's what we have. Now, the Electricity Act covers that. Yes, the Electricity Act has made a requirement, a mandatory requirement, and this is where you start to see meritocracy. It is right there that every participant, every generator in that country, even the distribution company in that state, they are supposed to use a certain percent of their portfolio from renewables.
And this is in the law?
It's in the law. It has been silent about. Nobody has talked about it. I just look at everybody. And that's one weapon you have to get it right. Look, what we have is some microgrids will spring up. In Lagos State, for example, that beach that is having waves from the sea, we can turn it to power through tidal barrages. In the north, we have wind, we have solar, we have water everywhere around. Everywhere around this country has water. And you can have small dams. You used to have them on your dam before, and used to produce electricity, but it was stopped in the 1940s, and it used to produce electricity. But because everybody went into Niger Delta oil and left their own stuff.
And the oil is quick money, so everybody went there.
Yeah. So, but you need the first thing you build in a nation is power system. The first thing. So we are happy that this law has it. We are looking for states that the electricity market regulator will then say, look, you know what? People should put solar on top of their roof and generate electricity. And we will incentivize that and say, look, you know what? You will not pay for electricity again. Just generate electricity yourself.
So you're saying there's a huge opportunity here for off-grid players.
Oh, wonderful. So much. Microgrid, off-grid players, and so on and so forth.
But I worry because before the act itself, I mean, the off-grid market, states could still play in that market. I mean, there are rural areas where if a state government builds a mini grid, they will not be breaking any law.
No.
But for some reason, it was never leveraged, it was never explored. Everybody seems to think that the solution is, I want to have control on generation, transmission, and distribution. Why is that so?
A number of issues, a number of reasons for that. Yes, it's one of the arguments from those who say, look, we are excited about the Electricity Act, but what will happen? Because they have had this opportunity and they didn't do anything. Remember that for investors, profit is an important thing.
Yes.
So investors will not want to go into those rural areas because they know that economic activities in those places are not so much. And then the ability to pay back will not be there. So that's one reason why, but that's not to say the states shouldn't have done it. Another reason I think the states may have stepped back is because, you know, you have the Rural Electrification Agency,
Yeah, the
REA, as a national body, getting all the funds, getting all the support. So they are supposed to now be the Rural Electrification Agency for each state. However, what has happened over the years, people who occupied those positions have taken a section of the country only to put stuff. There is this energizing education where they selected universities in cities.
And there was quite a lot of funding, to be fair, from the REA and the World Bank. You know,
so if they can bring those fundings to some of these states, 10 states, and give them and say, look, though it's from national, but we are giving you to fulfill your rural electrification aspect of your electricity market, I think that will go a long way. That's not saying that we are absolving the states from not taking this advantage since it has been there. Let me tell you the history of this Electricity Act you are looking at. It has been there since 1979 Constitution. 79. And 1979 is 46 years to 2025 now. Is that right? Yeah.
Around that.
Yeah, it's 46 years. So they removed it in 1999. They removed this. So all this Electricity Act we are even happy about, the thing they put back in 2023 was already there in 1979. Some people just removed that clause, that particular sentence there.
And we don't know why that happened.
Yeah, somebody just did it and nobody knew in what they called the 1999 Constitution. Very bad. And that set us back over 40 years because it took exactly 40-something years
to get that back.
To get it back. And that's the story of power system. Any damage you do in a power system, like the incorrectly implemented privatization exercise of 2013, that's setting the country back. You can see how long it's taking now for us to come out of it. It's 12 years now, 2025, by November 1st. And if you don't, the only way out is this decentralization, I said, which will bring in this opportunity of renewables, solar parks, mixture of energy mix.
I'm going to bring a few off-grid people to talk about how they want to leverage the opportunities we see. But before we wrap up now, investment this year, 2025, the power sector, where do you see investment going into, or where do you think more money, more investment should go into? Because the minister says he wants to spend 8 billion on advocacy just to tell Nigerians how to pay their electricity bills. In my view, I think that should not be the best way to spend 8 billion. But for you, where do you see, more investment should go in? Just in the next 1 minute.
Yeah, metering. Okay, if you get meters to people, then you are having the right investment. Also in the networks. So networks are dilapidated, they are not good. Overhead lines, cables, power transformers, and so on and so on. But in the right places. You must follow system studies. System planning must be the key part of your investment strategy.
Interesting. Thank you so much. And I think this is all we can take for today. We've been discussing the power sector and expectations for 2025. As I said earlier, 10 states now have their markets. What does this mean for the common man? How do we get power to Nigerians? What will this mean for the different states? It's what our guest here has been able to analyze for us, and some of the issues we need to look out for. Where should money go for the year? Very important. Energy mix, renewables, solar. I don't know briefly, sir. Solar, the adoption of solar, what do you think? How has it been so far?
It's very slow, but
Very slow.
it needs to pick up with this Electricity Act.
It needs to
should
pick up. It needs to pick up. All right. Thank you so much. My guest is Engineer Idowu Oyebanjo, who is the Managing Director, Idfon Power Engineering Services Limited. I've been speaking to him. And this is the Power Energy Outlook. And we'll see you again next week as we bring another guest to indeed help us to look at another aspect of the energy sector and what you should expect for the year. But I hope this has been very informative for you. You join us exactly same time, 6 p.m. next week, Friday, as we continue the conversation. My name is Wisdom Chap Jumbo, your host, and it's been nice having you all. Thank you. Till next.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I know you see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.